Okay, excellent. Welcome everyone to the Many Hats Club podcast on Twitch. So stream. I don't know if we're piping. I think we're piping this into Discord as well. So hello Discord. Welcome everyone. I am absolutely delighted tonight to be joined by Cal Leeming, who's from Zero Guard and a previous guest on our podcast. So I had a chat to Cal briefly before the conference, and sadly we couldn't fit his talk in, but we're absolutely delighted that he's come to join us now and do this talk, and actually he's got the whole show to himself, got as long as he needs, which is great, rather than being cut off early. So that's even better. I'll probably tell you about that story later. There's a funny thing that happened in the conference. Someone actually got cut off 25 minutes earlier. Someone thought they had a half an hour talk, an hour talk, and or half an hour, and they actually had an hour talk, and it was cut off halfway through his talk. Amazing. Oh no. Anyway, so look, Cal, thank you. Welcome back, by the way.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so you've been busy since we've last spoke.
Yeah, can you tell? Look at the bags under my eyes.
So do you want to give everyone a bit of an intro to maybe that haven't listened to your podcast, and if they haven't, then you absolutely should listen to his podcast. It's absolutely amazing. But can you give us a bit of an intro to yourself? And
yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who haven't heard my previous podcast with Many Hats Club, I talked a little bit about where my background was prior to 15 years ago. So I was formerly once the UK's youngest convicted hacker at 12 years old. I started hacking at 10. I also got sent to jail for it, and that was not fun. And then after that whole period, and I've just summarized 18 years of misery right there. After that period, I decided, I should probably do something with my life and get myself together. And I was really lucky that I caught the attention of these two really, really smart entrepreneurs, a guy called Mark Stubbs, another guy called Ryan Marquis. They were building this little unknown company called Pixelmax. And they said to me, Cal, I love your story. I love your background. You're a good engineer as well. I want you to build this. And at the time, I really didn't know that much about programming, but I did it anyway. And the company took off. And before I knew it, there was like 50 people in the office. And if it wasn't for them, I really wouldn't be where I am today. They gave me that chance to kind of reprove myself, as it were. Over the last 10 years, I've spent time mostly in software engineering, solving problems, a lot of time in DevOps, basically sysadmin monkey, fixing stuff, building servers, all the usual. Quite a bit of time in SecOps as well, so automating security pipelines, all that kind of usual stuff. Instant response, so we get a phone call, client says, what's happening? Been hacked, etc., etc. We jump in, kick out whoever's there and give them an island of calm to conduct their response efforts from. And also security advisory. So some of you may have seen some of my other talks, and I'm also a guest lecturer at ICL on healthcare security. I was once described as a chaotic neutral by one of my friends. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. I'm still trying to work that one out. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
And what are you going to talk to us about today, Cal?
So today, I'm going to tell you how we managed to take 6 trillion rows of data, which is about a petabyte worth, and process it and condense it down into something usable. I guess I should probably start with a little bit of background about this. So why did we start this? Well, it all started because we were doing an instant response contract, and we really, really needed to hook some Intel feeds into Carbon Black and into Splunk. And we went to some companies, and they wanted so much money. It was unreal. And it wasn't just for one either. You had to go to like 5 or 6, and they all wanted a huge slice of that pie. And half of them couldn't do the kind of things we wanted anyway. Like domain tools, they wanted, it was nearly $1 million for what we wanted, and it would have taken 3 months of professional service consulting to integrate. Right? No bollocks to this. We'll make our own. How hard can it be? So we took the mantra of, you'll probably recognize this slide, collect all the things all the time. Good old GCHQ and NSA coming in right there. But we slightly amended it to analyze all the things all the time, because we didn't want to just be yet another dumpster fire of put all the data here and then don't do anything with it. So all the stuff we wanted to collect, well, okay, we want to collect all the things, but realistically, we don't have the budget of Google. We've got a little bit of budget. So we decided to collect all the things about internet infrastructure and cyber threats. So there's a big list here. You'll probably recognize some of these. Want to know where IPs are being announced from. Want to be able to do ASN lookups. We want to be able to look at the reputation for IPs, for domains. Want to be able to automatically enrich data within Splunk and a couple of other products where it shows the ASN, it shows the RIR name, the registry allocated name. We also want to look for what certificates are associated to IPs, what certificates associated to host names, what other certificates are in the SANs, and have a kind of automatic exploding model so that you're not sat there handcrafting 1,000 lines of Python to query 10 different APIs. And when it gets halfway through, it says your quota's expired and then they come looking for more money, right? And then on the other side, also chat logs. So you've got this huge amount of data to collect automatically, but then you've got some really specific data. So this is effectively covert intelligence, which sounds sexy, but really all it is just burnable profiles. Make sure you clean room them, go and join a bunch of Discords, join a bunch of groups, and then just a constant feedback loop, right? Build up the reputation of that persona, get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Drag out everything you can as quickly as you possibly can without raising too much suspicion, of course, and then analyze it, look for threats. And a lot of the time, you're going to see stuff in there that you wish you didn't see. Yeah, pro tip, don't scrape images. It's a bad idea. And other times, you'll see a bunch of intel about a leak on a company. There was one, a couple in the news actually in the last month where we detected it. One was from a private source as well. And we couldn't do anything about it. We didn't have the resources to notify 1,000 different companies. So you have to sit in the background sometimes and just let nature take its course. But when you can step in, we do try. Went back a slide. So how hard can it be? 12 zeros. Things get a little bit weird, even as an experienced software engineer and the fucking awesome team that we have at Zero Guard and better engineers than I am, even for them, things were odd. Software behaves differently. Things like Postgres, the query planner, starts fighting against you, and it just does things weirdly. Cloud becomes too expensive. We tried to put a petabyte of storage on a cloud. It's like 300K was it a year or a month in storage alone? Processing it was 10x. Quick customer queries was 100x. So it was either, okay, what am I going to do with all these numbers, with a petabyte of data, with all the numbers we're ingesting as well? I'm either going to literally go and raise funds and hand those funds to Bezos. Here you go, Bezos. Would you like a free blowjob at the same time? Oh, yes, sir. Right? Or we build it ourselves and we make our own damn facility. So we started looking at it, and building our own facility, a petabyte of storage gets quite heavy. 2 tons of equipment. I actually messed up my back a little bit moving it all. The JBODs alone are like 70 70 kilos or something. All the disks in there 120 kilos. It all starts adding up. And so we just bought a bunch of stuff. We bought a bunch of GPUs, bought a bunch of servers, but we bought them very, very, very cheap on the brokerage market. We found a guy. His name's Tone. He's down in a warehouse in Oxford. He's a great guy. Fucking love him. And he calls me up every now and then. It's like, Cal, just had a massive batch of servers come in from God, like, all over the place. You interested? And he just gives me fantastic rates, which is amazing. Best contact I ever made. But of course, it's not unlimited budget, right? It's like, in this instance, we were the investor. We took the funds from River Oakfield, the profit made from River Oakfield, and we used it to invest so that I don't get my eyes gouged out by VC again. What was the budget? Got 150K budget, Cal. It's like, oh my God. You could just see the engineering team crying inside, like, why are you doing this to us? So how the hell do you do this on a 150K budget, considering putting it in the cloud alone would have been like 20 million plus? Well, it turns out depreciation value on hardware is fantastic. New in 2000, some of these are numbers are obviously different years, but for some of the hardware we bought, it would cost about 429,000. Like the JBods alone are 60K.
Wow.
We bought them on brokerage, used, of course, and we had to refurb them ourselves. They were still dusty and had the customer labels on and shit. And we got it for 98% cheaper. Right? That for us was the very definition of staying scrappy. Why go and raise 500K of capital and then lose out on some of the cap table? Why when you can just go and use used hardware? Right? It was a real lifesaver for us. Of course, we had to put this somewhere, right? So we've got two facilities. So I'm going to tell you about our best one first. It's a pro facility, a place called 4D. Fantastic guys, hands down, the best data center I've ever used. And considering our primary customer base is data centers, of which they weren't a customer, that says something. They were very, very, very good, or are very, very, very good. They were very patient with us as well during build time. This was us just taking over the data center floor after we'd just grabbed a bunch of hardware. It's about, 20% of all the equipment. And I was there for about 4 or 5 days with our CTO, Pierre Mosgard, and we just built it all there. And this is what it looks like afterwards. This actually ended up on cable porn. I did not submit it. I did. Someone else submitted it. I was like, my life is complete.
I've got to say, it is cable porn. Look at it; it's amazing, right? That's amazing. How long did it take to get that all set up?
That was 5 days to do.
5 days. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was OS installs. That was configuring the networking stack from scratch, configuring all the virtualization, all the security pans, like cabling, refitting out the servers with the right cards and stuff. Everything. Me and our CTO, very long hours. 5 days.
That's amazing. That really is.
And yeah, just more pretty pictures of that's the pro facility. And when you turn all the lights off, it looks so good. I love that place. Yeah. But we then had a bit of an issue. I still needed to test the next phase of the project, and data center was 2.5 hours away from me. So I need a space. I need somewhere with lots of space. I need at least 60 amps of power because these things are hungry, and it needs to be close to my house. Why not just use my house, I said. So that's what I did. I started piling up this equipment in my house. You can see my son there. The equipment was taller than my son. All the drives, of course, at this point needed labeling and caddying. My partner was very happy to be doing this task, as you can see. Someone's got to label 300 drives. But I think the final straw was when I started digging up the front yard to install fiber, because I didn't want that noisy shit in my office over there, but I wanted that all in this little tiny room in the house. And she flipped her shit. She's like, "Get this out of my house right now, Cal." It's like, okay, right, back to square one. What am I going to do? We need somewhere to do R&D. We need now 100 amps of power, it turned out. We need lots of cooling capacity because this thing, I could have turned off the heaters and the house still would have been warm. Needs some decent connectivity. It needs to be strategically, geographically positioned so that I can just quickly drive there. I don't have to go 2.5 hours to a data center. So I started looking. I'm quite lucky. I'll give you some background. I'm very lucky that I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and I've got a very patient landlord who has helped me to no ends with this project on the physical side. He also owns a tractor, several tractors. So we looked at getting an outdoors telecom unit. These are used. I think this was an EE one. Someone had gone and cut all the cables, and instead they just decommissioned the site because it was too expensive. So okay, fine. Too small though for us. We're gonna make one. And so the landlord got us this beautiful modified shipping container. They had a door on it, a window on it. The windows are great for when it gets a little bit too hot, and stuck a few stickers on the front. I've got great security on there, beware of the dog. It's all good. And our pro fire suppression system. Right? Haven't had to use it yet, which is fantastic. Some of the stuff gets a little bit heavy when you're moving it inside there. So thankfully he has a tractor. This is the inside of the data center. The airflow design is a little fucky, I'm not going to lie, because it kind of goes like that, right? But there's no other way to do it. So unless I want to lose half my storage space. So I've got a nice storage space to put the servers on, and I've got a rack or 2 racks in there, and 60 amps of power, another 40 when Western Distribution decide to get their ass into gear. Advanced flood prevention systems, as you can see here. This was quite the thing to wake up to, and I had to go to my son's concert 30 minutes after this happened. So that was fun to deal with. Of course, redundant internet uplinks, super fast. Stick a 4G modem on the side. We'll be fine, man. We'll be absolutely fine. Especially when a leased line costs £600 a month and would have taken 6 months to install, because we live in the middle of nowhere. And look, 100 Mbps. Admittedly, that's maxing out the cell site of the area, but it's still 100 Mbps.
It's good though. That's good.
Oh, well, it's fucking fine, man. It was great. We pimp up the rack, right? There's all the equipment. This is all the R&D equipment, not prod equipment, of course. And if you look carefully on the left-hand side, you'll see how I'm doing cable management, which is to just make an umbilical cord, and I just dangle it from the top with a cable tie. Ghetto. It works. Who needs cable arms? However, it started to get a little bit hot in there. It turned out the little portable aircon just wouldn't quite cut it, and when it accidentally turned off because the aircon unit itself got too hot, it was very hot. It got very hot in there. So we went pro cooling. We got an aircon installed. Aircon company wanted 2.5K, so we just did it ourselves. Found some guy on it's like Checker Trade or something with an F-gas certificate. No idea if it's fake. And he came out, installed it. Seems fine. Works nice, and it's a nice chilly 3 Celsius. So yeah, it's all good.
Nice.
Also doubles as a daycare facility. Yeah. It's great. Kids love it in there. So that was us built on, of course, keeping the workspace tidy. Oh, and pro tip, if you ever buy a whole bunch of really expensive NVMEs, don't hand them to your 5-year-old to unpack, because he will drop them and you will have a heart attack.
Ooh, yeah. Expensive lesson, right?
Yeah. Luckily that one survived, but it does have a bit of a red sticker on it now to say this may die. So that was the first part. We've now got our facility to process this data. What do we do next? Well, now we need a bunch of GPUs, because our workload is some of the code uses something called PFAC and a couple of other algorithms to actually process the data, because it's quite a lot. Turns out GPU chassis are really expensive. Mining boards too slow. They're only 1 to 4x PCIe speed. Need really high density, because as you can see, the data center is quite small. And we need controlled airflow, again, because of the way that the airflow works in the room. So I wasn't about to go and pay 87 grand for one of these NVIDIA branded deep learning machines. So we tried one unit. We tried a used Supermicro, but the airflow design was really dumb. Like on the right-hand side, airflow was fine, works absolutely fine, because it actually had a proper fan there. On the right-hand side, they kind of had 2 fans blowing into each other and tried to make their own hot aisle design. But of course, it just ended up as a massive hotspot. So one of the cards just throttled out at like 94 Celsius. I took the card out and burned my hand. Not even kidding.
Oh my God, that's hot. Yeah.
Yeah, it got pretty hot. So we tried to modify it. Duct tape, right? Take 2 cards, smash them together, stick a fan on the side of it, stick a 12-volt DC on there, and then throw it in a mining rig. It works, but the airflow is too messy, because the CPU fans are blowing one way and GPUs are flowing another, and doesn't rack up. It felt too ghetto, right? So we got some really cheap R5500 rack workstations. They're about 50 quid each. And the problem with these, though, is that those little fans, they look like they'll be really fast, right? Nah, they're piss poor. So what we did is we took the PCIe cables, of which there was 30 PCIe cables, spliced them, bought a bunch of HP fans used, of course, like 3 quid each, spliced them onto the PCIe, and it didn't take too much power draw, so it didn't overload the power port for the PCIe.
Yep.
And duct taped it onto there, put 2 of them on, and it just rinse and repeat 30 times. Soldering iron every time, heat gun. Oh my God, it took me days to finish that. But was it worth it? Abso-fucking-lutely. We managed to get, instead of having to spend 500 odd grand for the NVIDIA branded ones or the Supermicro ones that overheated, we got this 50 quid each for the Dell workstations, the cards 50 quid each, and no thermal throttling, 64C. Our bodge fix was better than the official equipment. I was quite proud.
Look, my son was saying goodnight to me halfway through. Sorry.
No, it's absolutely fine. So I want to talk about some of the challenges of that we encountered when going through this data. Now, some of these slides are a bit all over the place, so feel free to interrupt me at any point if it feels like I'm getting lost. This is quite a fun one. When we bought PAN, we bought a virtual PAN, and we were like, why is this capping out at 2.5 gig? Oh, it's just smashing on one core. So we did what any respectable company would do, and we mounted that motherfucker in read write on Arch and started having a look around, and it turns out there was actually a bug in the licensing code that restricted the number of cores, and clearly this was a typo. So we submitted a bug patch, a bug fix to Palo Alto, fixing this bug for them. They rejected it. I don't know why, and we were kindly advised to revert the patch, which we did. So that was a bit of a shame. We ended up having to use something what we call Autobahn, which is effectively any machine that needs fast access. It gets a leg in a particular VLAN, which then uses switch-based ACLs, and then it gets 10 gig or 40 gig aggregate on LACP. So
I'm assuming they asked you to patch that bug because then people wouldn't upgrade their firewalls, right?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
But don't make it better. Oh no. We need people to upgrade. So we need to tell them it's not working. You need to get the latest one, the upgraded one. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They seemed pretty insistent that it was not a bug, and that I wasn't going to get a bug bounty for it either. So yeah, some lose some, I guess.
Really? It's no good.
So moving swiftly along. CT logs. For those of you who don't know what CT logs are, they're effectively a stream of certificates that, so every time someone goes and registers a certificate, it gets submitted to multiple logs, and anyone can just go and download these logs. The RFCs are really weird. Whoever wrote them was smoking some amazing crack. Like honestly, it's really good. You have to parse the structs by hand, which in its own is a nightmare. And each implementation of the CT log is configured differently. Like Cloudflare will let you fetch 1,024 entries per request, and they won't rate limit you. Whereas Google only lets you get 30 per second in a single chunk, and they rate limit you as well. It's weird. The index positions, they don't send you them back. You kind of have to infer them yourself based on the list you get back, which means that everyone who's collecting CT logs possibly has an off by one error on their indexes compared to everyone else. So that's annoying. There's no authoritative source for all the RDAP. So ignore that RDAP line. That's for another thing. And there's billions of records, freaking billions of these things. So we cracked out Rust, started extracting and looking through these CT logs. That's the nested statement of doom.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
That's a lot of fun to unpick right there.
Our CTO, Pierre, he's done some amazing stuff in Rust. We've got a whole section in a minute about how amazing Rust is, but I won't gush too much. I'm going to ignore this next slide for a minute because that was actually misplaced. In fact, hold on. Oh yeah, and there you go. That's just, we download all the records, throw them into gzip, and then we also have a stream going out to live events. So that basically means that you can do reporting queries versus detecting stuff on the fly. You have to split the channels off. You can't try and mix live workflows with reporting workflows because the code.
So question before we go into the next couple of slides. So
Sure.
Obviously you built all this amazing stuff. I guess we probably should ask, what does it actually do? What does someone actually consider? I know you're going to talk about the end, but what is it you're trying to deliver? Is it intelligence or threat intelligence or data mining? What's the ultimate outcome of your organization?
Absolutely. So the outcome really is to give people twofold. One is an API that engineers and threat hunters can use that merges all the different data sources. I won't start name dropping vendors because that's not cool, but who is RDAP new, who is DNS, port scans, honeypots, chat logs, every single thing you can imagine queryable from a single API, and also all the hard data science problems solved, i.e. you don't have to go and figure out how to connect everything together. We just do it all for you. So it's effectively a threat hunting platform.
Okay. You mentioned it's like a trillion, is it trillion bits of data or something like that?
Yep.
How far back does that go?
Oh, sorry, hold on 1 second. My screen just
did that thing. So how far back does the data go?
So the data goes back 10 years.
10 years. That's really good. That's a long time. That's a lot of data.
Yeah. It was quite the challenge to get all of that backfilled. Like, that's literally why, if I look through this window, that container is sat up there, right? Because processing it required 100 amps of power, and I wasn't about to go and commit to 100 amps of power at the DC when I'm not going to use it for the next 9 months. Right.
So how do you go about scraping all that data? Like, literally, so it's a lot of data to scrape, right? It's basically, and I'm assuming it's all been indexed and categorized as well, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So there's some slides shortly about.
Oh yeah, I'm jumping in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. So I won't go into too much detail because it's talked about in a bit. But effectively, if you imagine a workflow, the first thing is get the data. That's the most important thing, because some of this data disappears very quickly and some of it updates very quickly, especially people like editing messages when they realize, oh shit, I accidentally uploaded something, or deleting a paste bin, oh shit, get rid of it. So we grab it really, really, really quick. We use a lot of undocumented APIs. So what you'll find is the official APIs for services don't give you as much data back, and it's more inefficient, and they charge you more per query. Whereas if you use the front-end APIs, the ones that are designed for their portals, because of their very nature, they mix the queries together. They do a lot of the processing on the back end, merge it, and you get more. So we mostly use undocumented APIs for a lot of our stuff.
That's good.
That and having 40 gigs, a 40 Gbps uplink, which is 20 gig redundant, helps a lot as well. And a data center provider that allows us to push 2 million packets a second. Yeah, all these things are helpful.
Yeah, that helps a little bit, just a tiny bit, right?
Just a bit.
All right, sorry, I won't interrupt you anymore. I'll let you carry on.
No,
sorry,
no, please,
I had that question, so yeah.
No, absolutely. Please feel free to interrupt at any time. So RDAP was a bit of a weird one. For some reason, my RDAP slide has disappeared, but effectively RDAP is like WHOIS, but it's an API. It's like a HTTP API version of WHOIS, but it's heavily undocumented. Not all the registrars are adhering to it, and they're all different. They all implement it whatever way they want, and there's no central authority. So we had to literally go through and make our own central authority by looking at Internic, by looking at the registrar websites, by guessing, by just putting WHOIS on the start of the NIC's website, and then querying it, and then by hand checking each response. Props to our engineering team, Artem and Carrillo, as well for doing that. I don't know how they survived that week of hell. So once you've got all of these RDAP servers, you can then just go and scrape them like anything else. Of course, they all have rate limits, and you have to be careful not to cause the servers to go down, because some of these registrars just put it on like a one core box with no rate limiting, so you can very quickly, oops, I just knocked out a registrar, which is bad. So you have to be careful. With RDAP, you just scrape over time. Some of it is not worth scraping. DE, for example, all they give you back is live or not live. Yeah, great. Thanks,
Helpful.
guys. Yeah, GDPR coming into full force right there. So that's just one example. Arista switches were kind of cool. These are really awesome. You can get them. What is happening to my screen?
I know. Have you got mood lighting on or something? Or what?
I don't know what's happened there. Hold on. Let me just quickly fix that. I was wondering why my eyes were doing strange things, and maybe I've got. I'm checking now. Yeah. Oh, it is. Oh, god damn it. Sorry.
What virtual wallpaper did you have?
I just had a space background, but it was looking for my green screen, which is over there. So all of a sudden, my face started melting. That was amazing. Right, let me put this back up. Can you see my slides?
Yeah. No, not yet. No.
Ooh, hold on. It's probably because it's unshared. Let's try that again.
There you go.
Okay, can you still see them?
Yeah, see it fine.
Awesome. So, Aristas, yeah, Aristas are great. The older ones, you don't get any port-based ACLs, so you can't treat them like a dumb firewall, but you do get host-based ACLs, i.e. block this range to this range, block this VLAN to that VLAN. One of them had a dodgy power rail, which meant it kept kicking out all the time, and we didn't know why, but we just replaced it. That's fine. Batch of 5, 1 dead. Yeah, it's not bad. Firmware's a bit hard to get. If you do manage to acquire it, check all the hashes just to be sure. Arista were very kind and they publish the hashes. So yeah, they know the score. Transferring the data between the facilities, this was an interesting one. Live is fine because the deltas just happens over time. But the backfill, you've got 500 Ts of data. This is the best quote ever. Never underestimate the speed, the bandwidth of a car with 500 Ts of drives in there. 30 gig a second. Ping's a bit high, but yeah, it's all right. It's a job done.
That'll do, right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I even if I had a leased line, I couldn't have even got it in that quickly. So yeah, sometimes it works. The old school methods. Some of the other challenges. Making spinning Rust faster. So we used a lot of hard drives to store this because, quite frankly, we've got 150K budget. Right? I can't go and afford all SSD. So you have to kind of work around some of these things. For example, stock Postgres, you're going to have to tweak that, and you're going to have to tweak it a lot. Benchmark it for your workloads, tweak the schema, tweak the query planner. The query planner is going to tell you to fuck off constantly, and you just got to fight it to get those numbers. It's a lot of operational overhead. One nice little trick we learned, though, if you want to get really good performance out of spinning Rust, and you've got a whole bunch of files on there, build a catalog of the files sorted by Zol object ID. There's a stat command that will go and do it for you. Just literally find, and then grab the files by order of the Zol ID, and you will get a 99% throughput on that device. We get a gig per second per pool, and we've got 10 pools in one server. So we're literally pulling 10 gigabytes a second through sequential. And it should have been random read, right? But because we optimized it, yeah.
That's decent. That's really, really good.
That was a nice little trick. Yeah, we didn't think it was going to work. But me and the CTO just sat there on a call, like just literally drinking ourselves into oblivion one night. It was like, I wonder what will happen if we do this. Nah, it won't work. Holy shit. Great, man. And yeah, there's an example of what a catalog file looks like. So you just basically sort it by that ID number in the middle. Job done. and that's one of the pools. So we use Solaris quite a bit for storage. Solaris is solid. I've got a little bit of a slide bitching about Solaris, but 500 T or 400 odd Ts in one box, haven't had a blip once. It's just smashed away, even when it's had power cuts because Western distribution killed our container. Even when it had floods and the humidity went up to 80%, it was fine. Took everything it could handle. Parity for days.
Oh, that's amazing.
By the way, if I'm boring anyone at this point, please let me know. That I decided, rather than trying to give everyone like the sales talk about what we do, save that for another day. Show the engineers what they want to see. Show them the dirt, right? So a couple other conclusions. Postgres and ZFS on Linux is amazing. You get guaranteed consistency on your DBs, no bit rot. The compression, holy shit. We had no idea that the transparent compression in ZFS would work so well with Postgres. We got 3x. So we effectively took our big, I think we've got 300 Ts in the DB cluster, a mixture of SSDs and hard drives and NVMe, and we got 3x compression on it. It's amazing, right? And especially when the indexes explode as well. Right? You take your raw data and you can X that by like 10, right? So that was a nice find. Insert rates, we get 60 million inserts a second. I'd like to see MongoDB do that, right? It's been fantastic. Admittedly we had to do some pretty weird things like running 4 copies of Postgres on the same box because we started encountering bugs in the way that Postgres locks itself, and we're getting too many context switches and all sorts of stuff. So we're just like, fuck it, install 4 instances, see what happens. Pin the cores, make sure that NUMA doesn't get involved, i.e. you're doing cross CPU memory allocations and stuff, prevent that. Yeah, works fine, man. And you get some nice extensions in Postgres as well for free. Rust. So I'm going to prerequisite this. I don't know how to use Rust. I can't write Rust. I've been watching in awe of our CTO using Rust, and I've seen how fucking awesome it is. It's safe by default. It's blazing fast for processing big data sets. Endless amounts of modules, like almost in terms of the ecosystem, in the same way that you can go to Python and be like, oh, I need an IP module, I need a parsing module, I need this or that. It's the same with Rust. It's just there. It's just ready. It works. The tooling is amazing. They've learned from all the mistakes of pip and pipenv and gems and npm and all those other things. They've learned from all of those, and they've implemented the fixes. And it's backwards compatible with the C foreign function interface, I believe it's called. So the similar things that you do with the C wrappers in Python. Again, it's not my area of expertise, but it's fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. Highly recommend that people check out Rust. If I'm boring you at any point, by the way, just let me know.
That's just good. We've got quite a few people watching now, so it's quite nice. It's awesome. Nice. So it's good to know.
Solaris 11.4. You know what? For all of the slack that Oracle gets, they're actually pretty cool with support. I've been able to use our support plan. I hit them up and was like, we've got a problem. And they came back and they were like, oh yeah, here you go. Now, admittedly, they did admit to me that the problem we had was submitted by 2 people in the last 10 years. One company about 7 years ago and us. And the guy was straight up, we're not going to fix this. We ain't going to be fixed, and we don't have a workaround. Deal with it. It's like, oh, well, at least they're honest about it, right? I was very surprised. So it does some weird things. Stock Python will hard lock, for example. The hardware support, if you try using any unsupported hardware, it's going to have a SAD. Takes forever to boot. But you know what? It's pretty damn stable as a file server. We haven't had any issues at all. We use it mostly for the storage of the raw sets, and then the actual processed sets they use ZFS on Linux. Because fuck trying to get Postgres to work on Solaris. We tried once, never again. consumer grade SSDs. A lot of vendors look down on this and like, oh, don't use them. They're consumer grade. But if you're careful about the usage, you will get some amazing performance. The brand you always use branded ones. I've found the unbranded are a bit hit and miss. The read speeds amazing. You can get in terms of random IOPS, really, really, really good throughput. Write speeds is where it gets interesting. It has this thing called a write cache. So when people do these performance benchmarks and they're like, oh, I guess a gig a second, whatever it is, or that's NVMe, but 300 megasecond, whatever the max on SATA is, they'll use that as the benchmark. But actually, they're just hitting cache. So if you're writing loads of data, all of a sudden your graph will be like this, and then it will just tank. Right? So you have to structure your workload so that you try and stay in cache for write throughput as much as possible. And if you can't do that, just use NVMe's. It's really about pairing the hardware to the right workload and not just dismissing it as, oh, it's too slow, oh, it's too expensive, whatever it may be. Right? Use a measured approach.
Okay, that sounds good.
ZFS, it's awesome. I'm biased here because I've been using it for years. CTO has been using it for years. You do have to monitor it. To be honest, we just used Grafana and a bit of custom Python to monitor it. We just grab everything from /proc, pipe it out into Grafana, works fine. Or use InfluxDB rather and then pipe that into Grafana, works fine. Stable. Honestly, haven't had any issues, none at all. I've had a couple of issues once where I think one of the Zol kernel threads was just spinning quite a lot, but that was when we had hammered these boxes during performance testing, like really, really badly. But I personally am still a little bit paranoid about using it. So for long term, for the large storage arrays of archive data, which is effectively disaster recovery, we use Solaris for that one. Oh, and don't try and move data sets between Solaris and Zol. It don't work. no matter what they tell you, it don't work. I can tell you that right now. Legacy kit, if you are going to go this way and you're going to buy a bunch of legacy kit and save some cash, a couple of things to be aware of. HBAs, you're going to have to pull out a hex editor and manually patch the EEPROM by hand, and then get a little patch. I can't remember the name. It's a WinSen EEPROM patching tool, clip it onto the HBA, and then use some other tools from GitHub to flash your handcrafted hex onto this thing, and then spend 2 hours going through the process of actually getting that card to then boot up, because it's a hit and miss process. BIOS and iDRAC, you have to do it in stages, because otherwise you can end up with weird flashing issues, so that takes forever. You effectively just have that big bench I had in the at the DC and also the one up there. Just line the servers up and just leave them be. Go from one to the next and just round robin across. It's the only way. It's the only way to do it. iDRAC is Java only. We got around that by having a Windows desktop with all the horrible Java stuff installed, and then 2, a little Docker container that wraps the one of these iDRAC tools that if you give it an IP and a username, it can craft a session, but we haven't automated it, so we end up using the Windows box. And obtaining firmware is fun. Those HBAs, the Intel HBAs, were the IBM JBODs, the really expensive ones that we got for like 250 quid each. IBM told us to fuck off when we tried to get the firmware. They were like, straight up, give us. Yeah, it turned out actually those units were from a government organization. So, and it still had a valid support contract on them. They didn't terminate the support contract when they got rid of the hardware.
Wow.
So I tried to say, well, okay, transfer the license. And then they were like, well, email us from your .gov. I don't have a .gov. Oh, goodbye, sir. But we found the firmware in the end, validated the hashes, and yeah, it was all good. Yes.
IBM, gotta love them.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of other conclusions. Python we use for rapid prototyping. we found it, I'm biased here because I've been using Python for 15 odd years, but it is great for getting really quick things out the door. Rust for ultimate performance. Try and prototype in Python first if you can, though. We don't trust the RFCs, much like SIP RFCs back in the day. Never trust them.
Yeah.
Now we don't trust any of the RFCs because they're not accurate. The Postgres, scaling Postgres, we found you can scale vertically to a point, but because of this internal locking issue, you're going to hit limits where you then have to literally just have multiple Postgres installs and pin them to cores. But that then limits you on the amount of cores you can use unless you want to share. But if you share, then you end up with all sorts of weirdness. So
Yeah.
you can scale to a point, but eventually it's just easier to scale horizontally and shard across them. Of course, then you do have to consider what your temporal sets are, i.e. throw those into a table and don't worry about uniquing, versus what needs to have unique indexes, because that's where it gets really tricky. On-premise has been great for us. We've saved a bunch of money, used hardware, saved a bunch of money. We have indeed used all of the 150K. There was not a penny left over, but we got it out the door, right? We got it working. But there is a lot of operational overhead. You know, this took the combined efforts of my experience, our CTO's experience. I'm just seeing your background, and all of our engineering team, and some of them have got really heavy mathematical backgrounds as well. Took all of us to figure this shit out, and even now we're still running into issues that takes us weeks to figure out how to actually fix. Building products is hard. It's bloody hard, dude. I've never worked this hard in my life, and I've built previous companies as well. And this was by far the hardest. So after all that, that's a massive brain dump of all the geeky engineering stuff. Of course, this is a community talk, so I'm not going to give the sales pitch. That would be very distasteful. But I do want to show you what all that was for. A year's worth of work. Endless sleep loss, endless anxiety, endless amounts of me and my CTO going back and forth trying to figure out design decisions. We end up with this, a single CLI.
I tell you what though, okay, and you showed me this a bit earlier on, so you've got chat logs and WhatsApp and Signal, right, as well. So and the amount of stuff that you're picking up, this is some pretty impressive stuff, Cal. Right? In terms of the data, you know, from someone who loves OSINT, right? Someone who loves OSINT, someone loves threat intel type stuff. This is pretty good, right? What's the goal here for you? So because I think you mentioned to me before that you've got lots and lots of data sets, and this is obviously quite valuable. Discord, hopefully we're not in that Discord search. Anyway, because you get so much stuff from there. It'd be amazing. For days and days of stuff from Discord.
Days of intel, absolutely.
Days of intel right there, allegedly. What obviously this is a commercial offering, I'm assuming as well, because obviously you've spent money on this. So you're obviously a corporate. Are you going to release a community version, or is it just purely commercial, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things we want to do with this. We have several different revenue streams or revenue channels. God, I sound like a business wanker. Let me give the non-businessy version of this. We get money from different places. We've got the big contracts, which are 300K plus. This is for very managed access. They give us a goal, and we then use our platform internally, and we give them back a report, completely hands off. This is mostly used by finance companies and data centers. That's the biggest audience right there. The second one from that is the middle ground, which is companies that have got pre-established security teams that want to get quick access to APIs and don't want to have to use 1,000 different tools. They're not too worried about budget at that point. They still want they don't mind paying money. They get raw API access and VIP access, which is, look, if you want something and we haven't got it, just tell us and we'll add it. You know, we're scrappy enough and we're small enough at the moment that we can take on that hit. And those are usually anywhere in the 40, 50, 60K region, right? So it starts getting down. After that, we have the security researcher access. So this is independent security researchers or security people, both blue team, red team, at smaller companies, pen testing firms, even web hosting firms. They haven't got that kind of budget, but they're interested. Price starts to drop down to 3 figures at that point, $500, $600. And then below that is what we call the VIP, the super VIP list, which is you're fucking awesome. We love you. Here you go, bro. And we just give people access. Now that one we have to be a bit more careful with because we have to balance it with the money we're getting. So effectively, we take off a percentage of the big contracts we get, and we say, right, this percentage we're going to now put that back into the community and give them this access. And that's how we do it.
Awesome. Yeah. And it looks. Am I going to get to have a play with it?
Absolutely, dude. As it's a bit of a
put you on the spot there, but yeah, we can talk about it anyway. But yeah,
it's a bit of a pain point for us at the moment because this was actually scheduled to be launched as of 2 weeks ago. However, because of what happened with COVID, there was a lot of restrictions in terms of being able to move and being able to sort out problems at DC, and also acquiring hardware. Everything just locked up. So we had to rewrite quite a few of our components to basically not just throw money at the problem, but to actually fix some of those underlying issues rather than throw hardware at it. So access is coming. It's going to be a week or so. But we're dying to get this out the door and to people's hands.
Yeah, what I've seen of this so far, anyway, it looks awesome, and yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on it and have a play around and
thank you, man.
Give some feedback as well, man. Of course,
And this list, this is just the beginning. There is actually one item in here that I haven't mentioned, that we haven't listed, which is code repositories. So if you imagine code repositories all over the internet, all the different places, they're all public. You can download them all. There was precisely 560 terabytes worth. And it turns out that the search facilities over this data are heavily restricted. However, if you download all of the repos and process them using a PFAC algorithm in GPUs, you'll find some interesting shit. Some very, very interesting shit. So far, we have detected, I think it was 50,000 Kubernetes deployment keys. And there were so many of them that we had to automate the process of getting the committers of them, trying to figure out what company it was, and then sending automated alerts to people. We couldn't do it by hand. I would have loved to do it by hand. I would have loved to give that personal touch. There's too much.
Yeah,
there's too much data, and this is one of the reasons why we're dying to get this into people's hands, because we can only do so much. I could have a team of 50 analysts and still not keep on top of this stuff, right? So we want to get this in people's hands and see how we can improve it and really improve the security of the internet for everyone, right? If you don't have the money to be able to pay for it, fine. We'll give you access if you're going to do awesome things with it and you're not just going to, use it and not give back. Then obviously you don't get access. But if you're giving back to the community, if you're using it to notify people about problems, I've got no problem giving access, man.
Awesome, I love that. That's an awesome sentiment, and I love that. And I think you probably found quite a few RSA private keys and stuff in that code repository as well, and loads further. A lot. Thousands. Yeah. I've seen a shitload of those as well. Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing, though. When you go and search for this on various code repositories, search portals, they filter them. They actively filter the results. So when companies are doing searches for their IP on these places, and they do a search and like, oh, actually, we've got no leaked IP out there, we're good. You go and take some of the canary tokens that they've put in their source code, because obviously we're scanning every single commit across every file ever known, petabytes worth of when it's uncompressed, petabytes worth of data. You find these hits that haven't come up on public search. They're not on Google, they're not on GitHub, they're not on Bitbucket, they're not on anywhere, but they are in the RAWs. And it's an interesting perspective on realizing that some of these systems aren't as accurate as they make out to be.
A lot of people's eyes are going to be opened, I think.
Yeah, mine were. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. I was not expecting that, and it wasn't until the Kubernetes search, and obviously there was .govs, .mils, all sorts of stuff in there, and like you just prioritize. You send the most urgent ones out as you can. To be honest, the biggest issue that we have right now is the ethics of this platform, right? When you're giving this much access out to people, you've got to vet them to make sure that they're not going to misuse it.
Yeah.
But two, how are they going to use the data? What are they going to do with the data? It's quite a challenge.
I think so, because it's giving people too much information, right? And you said 10 years worth of data. Okay, some of the stuff from 10 years ago probably isn't going to be as valuable, although it'll be good from if you're building an intel on a target or something like that. Like an attacker, you might be able to pick up trends and things like this. But you flip that on its head, someone goes after an individual or a company or something like that and finds lots of issues and uses that to build a profile or to attack them or whatever it may be. There's always going to be ethics. So any tool that could be used for offensive purposes, there's always that ethics. But as long as you vet people, right, then I think you can only do what you can, right?
Yeah, there's also ethics in terms of the data we collect as well. So one of the more interesting ones is we get asked by boards to look at what threats their board members could possibly have. Things like, could they be easily coerced? Could they be bribed? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we actually made a little tool that scrapes all the images from Tinder, compares those to a bunch of images from social media sites, and also the images provided by the target themselves. And we look to see, are they cheating?
Yeah.
Right. And if they're on there, they haven't disclosed it, then that is a risk to the company, right? Because that can be used against them. But how ethical is that? Because that person could then lose their job, right? That person, if that information was disclosed in the wrong way, that could end up back to their partner, right? There's a lot of ethical concerns with all this data, and I think we have to be careful not to end up like the Cambridge Analytica now,
or Clearview. Yeah. I don't think you will be, personally. I think the fact you're even thinking about it, and I think the fact you're having those discussions at this early stage, I think it's always a good sign, right?
Yeah.
I don't think those companies did have those ethical considerations. It was all about money.
For me, obviously, my background already. So one, I have to keep myself super, super clean, because otherwise the police will just come up. Even though I train the police, even though I work with law enforcement to help train their officers, they could still just come and kick down my door at any time, right? With my background. So I have to be super, super clean. But also, anyone who's worked with me will know that I'm one of the most loyal people you could ever meet. If I say I'm going to keep my mouth shut, I keep my fucking mouth shut. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And trying to infuse those ethics, trying to infuse that way of thinking into this product is absolutely vital, because we don't want to be launching this for evil. The whole goal is to improve security for everyone. So yeah, that's our mantra.
Okay, that sounds awesome. And like I said, I've got full confidence you'll do that, mate. So absolute confidence. No evil Big Brother vibes from this corner.
No, I hope not. Anyway,
have you got more slides, or was that something else?
So this is a really early stage CLI that we wrote. It's still a work in progress, but effectively just shows what happens when you start using it and how it's basically CLI as a first-class citizen. We haven't done the pretty portal yet because, let's face it, no one bloody uses it, at least not the most of the target audience we're going after. So we focus on making the CLI amazing first. Every single thing you get back from the CLI is greppable, right? Every single thing can be exported into JSON, CSV, tabular format, printed tabular format. You can do explosion queries. It does all the caching for you. It just works. Every single endpoint is inside the CLI. We want to make it better, and it's quite hard to abstract some of those more complex, like for example, merging IPs of BGP with WHOIS. You would end up with this massively long like print of stuff. So at some point, we are going to have to move into building a portal. But for tools that you want to just hook up to Metasploit, that you want to hook up to other systems, that you want to just put automation onto, just use the CLI or just use the SDK.
Looks good, man. Looks great.
There was a... Oh, sorry, good.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
There you go. So there's an example. Yeah. So if you want to go and search all the historic pastes from Pastebin unfiltered, just go and type in Pastebin, type in the search terms.
Which you can't do anymore, right? Because paste.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't search our platform anymore. Can't paste anything. Can't use it.
I think that must have been all those people pasting ASCII lolly. Yeah, true story as well. True bloody story.
Oh my god, it's so bad. Yeah. So bad.
But you can see here this paste has got a bunch of emails in there, and it's like, oh, okay, they're all /n separated. So all you do is you use a little bit of bash, separate it out. You could use the API for this if you wanted, and boom, there's your results.
Nice, like it.
Yeah, the whole thing for us making CLI a first class citizen was the most important thing. The prettiness of the portal, yes, it's important, but it can come later. The other thing is what we've dubbed this auto porn or auto porn report. It's not, but it's the same. It's the same kind of feel. Effectively, you just give it a subdomain or a domain. So I've choose datto.com for this one because Datto are awesome. I've done some talks to them before, and I'm sure they won't mind me using their name for this one. You give it a domain, and it explodes everything for you. It gives you in a single XLS all the certificates known, all the subdomains, all the DNS entries, all the pastebin pastes, email leaks, port scans, everything.
Oh, wow.
We do port scans on a daily basis. So this is what the 2 million packets per second is. We use pfring with 0 copy to do that in Rust because ZMAP wasn't very good for us. It had some issues, and mass scan's great, but again, it had some issues. And so we can tell you definitively what port was open on what date, what banner was coming back on what date, what DNS entries did you have on what date. I mean, the DNS resolution's down to 14 days now. What pastes came back on what date. If you get what emails are known for that particular domain, and what leaks have they been involved in. Obviously, we don't give out the passwords for that one, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
What known names are there, and of course all the port scans. So you don't have to worry about port scanning because we port scan from a huge amount of IPs. I think it's like 10,000 or something like that. It's a huge proxy net, and they're all randomized all over the place. So some networks that kick in to block sequential port scans, they don't, right? It's effectively just background noise, and we set it low enough and spread enough so it doesn't impact any of the networks. And this is what you get. Yeah,
amazing. That I gotta say, I'm taking my many hats off to you, Cal. That looks super bloody awesome. It really does.
It's taken a lot of work. Like, I could not have done this on my own. The amount of people that have helped us, I can't even list them all because there's so many, but awesome engineering team. We've got awesome advisors, even people like yourself, where you've helped us with figuring out how we could potentially release this and what ideas we can come up with. It's been a true group effort. I'm very lucky to have met all these people.
So what's the what's the kind of vision for you guys in terms of like long term? What do you hope to do? What's the kind of big goal for you ultimately?
Absolutely. So this all started out with us building an EDR platform, or EDR/XDR, which was detect all the things all the time. We wrote our own Windows kernel, we wrote our own Mac OS, as a Windows kernel driver. We made our own Mac OS driver, made all sorts of stuff. But it's a heavily saturated market at the moment. You only have to look at what happened with Carbon Black, right? When they saw the threat from CrowdStrike, and even CrowdStrike are struggling quite a bit, or were. So we needed our Intel sources to really drive all that. So we kind of pivoted. And now that we've pivoted and we're getting this out the door, we're looking at, okay, how can we integrate this into other systems? What is going to relieve the most biggest pain of people next? I would love to be in a position where the company is growing to the size of where it's grown to some of my other companies. We've got 300 people plus, got a bunch of money in the bank, and I can maybe take a holiday. Honestly, that's the goal for me, to be able to have a holiday and not miss so many of my son's bedtimes. But company-wise, we've got a very set target, and that's that we want to hit a 200 mil valuation within the next 3 years.
Okay, that's really good. Well, I mean, I think a lot of companies will like this. I mean, it's definitely missing that level of just intelligence, actual intelligence and data, and what you guys are doing is super awesome. So I love it. I love it. I love it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Just give me access.
Oh, wait, it's coming. I promise you. I promise
I'm
you.
joking.
There's a VIP list in HubSpot, and there's 2 people at the top, you and one other person.
Yes. Oh, my arms have disappeared, but you can see, maybe if I didn't have a Solus virtual background on, my arms just don't actually work. Look, that's amazing. Anyway, okay. Well, look, Cal, I'm just going to check there's any questions and checking the time.
Yeah,
we're okay for time, but let me just see. Any questions from the Twitch channel at all? Can't see any, but lots of people saying how awesome it is. Toffee says, yeah, this is super cool. Like everyone's just saying, like literally, they love you and your passion, and
Thank you.
yeah, literally, they're saying that the pricing for researchers and Blue Team sounds good. I mean, lots of love, really, which is really good. Awesome. So yeah, I will. Yeah, everyone's saying they love it, so it's great. Look at this.
That's awesome.
Apparently, when is Cal getting a haircut? Apparently, someone else.
Oh my God! Look at this. Look. I look like Noel Gallagher. Like, seriously. My son offered to cut my hair, and I kid you not, I gave him the what do you call it, automatic razor thing. I gave it to shaver, and he was just about to, because I was going to go for a full bald, and I chickened out at the last moment. I was like, no, it's good. I'm good. Couldn't do it.
Somebody's asked in the chat earlier. Toffee just grabbed this. Is your company hiring, or will you company be hiring at some point?
Yes. So we are very, very, very careful with our budget and our money. That's one of the only reasons we've actually survived. Where other people have or other companies have sadly not survived, we've been able to, just because that was instilled in me in day one. Current budget, current cash flow, aiming to hire for Q3, assuming that we don't have any procurement issues during that time. And yeah, we're looking to bring on more engineers, ideally people with a lot of experience with Rust, looking for security analysts, and we're also looking for security researchers as well.
Okay, great. Well, I guess once you're ready to, are you looking for those, like when roughly, sort of after this kicks off, this sort of the kind of COVID-19 things dies down, or?
So for us, we're going to start searching just towards the beginning of Q3. We tend not to go too far in advance, because you interview people, you waste a bunch of their time only for them to be not available in 3 months. It's just ridiculous. So usually we jump on a call, and if we like you, we offer you a position the same day. Like, that's no messing around, and you either sink or you swim. Right? We've had. Out of all the hires, I think I've only had to fire 5 people, because they just couldn't keep up. They're like, no, really sorry, Cal, this isn't for me. But the ones that have, holy shit, they've just excelled, and yeah, I love them.
Awesome. So there you go. Make sure you swim, and you'll go real far. So.
I hope I didn't sound like too much of a douchebag there.
No. I know you, Cal. You're not, right? And you're all about the people, all about getting the best out of people. And actually, we've talked about this in the past before in terms of like how you hire people and invest in people, but also being like those kind of super agile kind of startups. You've got to commit, and you've got to push hard, and you've got to push yourself outside your comfort zone. And there's people want big corporate kind of background. It's not going to work. If you want to make something, be part of something, grow something, absolutely 100%.
Yeah. You want to be tearing your hair out at 3 a.m. because a customer needs a report or there's a particular incident going down, and you have to be at your desk. Yeah, this is the right place to be.
Yeah,
I'm joining for a sec.
That's why I have no hair, right? It's just because I've been doing that for like 6.5 years.
Yeah. Oh, I know the feeling, man.
Well, clearly not, because you've got long hair and it's thick.
I'm going to tell you a little story. When the anxiety was so bad, it's about a year and a half ago, we were dealing with quite a large breach, a financial services company. You've probably seen it in the media. I was so stressed out that I got into this habit of pulling my hair, twizzling it like that. Yeah. And I had a patch. In fact, you might be able to see it. I now have a bald patch there, and it doesn't grow back anymore. And my hairdresser.
Right. That's all. No, hang on. Hold my beer. That's a bald.
I shouldn't complain, really, should I?
No.
Literally pulling my hair out, man. Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, brilliant. Right, okay. Oh my God. This is why we should do Twitch more often, right? Okay.
You should, man. Absolutely.
Well, actually, yeah. Also, apparently, it's because I actually had my head shaved off and it went on Twitter live or something. That's a whole story as well.
Wait, really? You shaved your hair?
No, someone else shaved my head off. Dylan Wheeler shaved my hair off. I came back. It's a long story. We're doing a podcast, and he said, he shaved his head, and he went, I was a little bit tipsy. He went, do you want me to do yours? I was like, I've always wanted to shave my hair off, and he just did it, and then he streamed it live on Twitter. Yeah, so that happened to me. That was fun. That was an interesting life experience. Yeah, I know. Cal's gone dead. Or have I gone dead? What's happened? I've lost my audio.
So, crappy Amazon mic.
That's what it is. Jeff Bezos. Lots to answer for.
Damn it.
Right, okay, Cal. You've got some shout outs to do. No, I haven't given you a chance to do that. So who do you want to shout out to?
Sure. There are so many people that I want to, and I'd end up with 100 in here. So I literally just picked 4 random ones. Scott Helm, he's doing some really, really awesome projects. A lot of stuff for the community. Definitely check his stuff out. It's one of the few data sets that we don't bother scraping ourselves. The stuff he's doing, because he's just doing an awesome job, and quite frankly, we couldn't beat it. Yeah, he smashed it. So hats off to him. Tony over SAI. Tone, he is our equipment or hardware broker. Fucking awesome guy. I love him to bits. I really do. He's helped us out immensely over the last year and made this project possible. I could not have done this without the support of him. So thank you very much, Tone. Callum's a fun one. I reached out to him a couple of weeks ago. I was like, hey, we're doing this cool thing with all this Intel data. And he was like, oh, I'm doing this cool thing too. It's like, oh, shit, I didn't realize. But he built his in 2 days, right? Freaking awesome. Check
2
out
days.
2 days. Admit it, a smaller data set, obviously, but he for what he did in 2 days, fucking hats off to the guy. Seriously. And he gave it away for free. He was just like, here you go, community, have it. And he did that as part of the stuff he was doing for the NHS COVID-19 volunteering thing, for which is the next person. Daniel Card.
Daniel Card, yeah.
You guys are probably already aware of him. Check him out. Check out the story on Forbes. He has built an awesome community of people who are helping to protect the NHS and are donating their time. And I have endless amounts of respect for that guy. So yeah, that's all my shout outs.
Excellent. Awesome, man. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming to hang with us again. We should do this more often, man. I know you're a busy man, but yeah, I really appreciate it. And you're kind of the first person to do our official Twitch podcast as well. Look at that. There you go.
That's awesome, dude.
Nice.
And seriously, thank you for having me, for giving the opportunity to show off what we've done. A lot of the calls we have are more focused on the business side, so the fact that I was able to get just one day where I was able to take all these photos and all this stuff and just show it off, yeah, it's good. Yeah, thank you.
No, really appreciate it, man. So yeah, anything else you want to say before we kind of wrap up, and just check for questions anyway, just in case. Hang on.
I know how I think I've been talking for far too long. People are probably gonna get bored of my voice soon.
Okay, so mentors, which I'm assuming is Jack. Question: just curious if Cal was using any automation in his lab build. If so, what platform?
Yes. So with the builds, I'll be completely honest with you here. A lot of it is hand rolled, like a lot. The next step of automation is a bunch of bash scripts or one-liners. Our CTO is quite a fan of one-liners. Some of them make me weep, but he gets the job done, man, and he gets it done quickly. It's like, if it works, it works. The next up from that is Terraform combined with Packer. Our DevOps guy, one of our DevOps guys, does amazing things with that. He's a god with that stuff. And then all the usual automations around just scripting, dynamic lists in Palo Alto Firewall to block bad ranges, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, just the usual.
All right, awesome. And Chaotic Neutral Network asks, what music?
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I changed his name for this talk. What music have you been listening to lately?
So YT Cracker on the event, fuck my life, he was awesome.
Unbelievably on fire, right? Unbelievably on fire. I can't believe how good he was.
Honestly, one of the better sets I've heard in a long time. The nerdcore stuff was on point. The deep warm up he had at the start was amazing.
Yeah.
And the other ones I've been listening to, Latrell, he is a fucking god. Honestly, his sound is so unique, and his whole vibe is just like unlike any other producer that I've ever seen. Really loving his sets right now, and above and beyond, Jono Grant and Wisteloff, they're doing some really nice deep sets at the moment. So very much in a deep house kind of mood at the moment.
Nice, love it. Yeah, yeah. I got to say that a big shout out to YT Cracker. He
Yeah.
absolutely bloody nailed it. Seriously. I mean, he was only supposed to do an hour.
Really?
It was. He said like an hour. I said like an hour and a half, and he was like, yeah, okay. And then he was just like, he just kept going, and he looked at his phone, and we messaged him and said, how long do you want to keep going for? He's like, oh, I'm really loving it. I'm just gonna keep going. So he just did. He just kept going, and then at the end, I think he got to the point where it's just like, it's like 3.5 hours. I should probably stop. So yeah, but we kept the stream up. Like when it's like 200 and something for quite a lot in the stream, and then it dropped down to like 100 and something, and it just went right back up again. Like it was awesome. I've listened to that 5 times. I've had it in the background.
Same. I re-listened the whole set yesterday.
Yeah.
The thing I loved about his set the most is he switched it up so quickly.
Yeah.
Like you're in the zone, you're thinking, like you're just focusing, and all of a sudden he just drops these freaking awesome tracks, these lyrics. Like, wait, hold on, what the fuck did I just hear?
I know, just in right, and then he switches into the nerdcore stuff, and then it's just like boom, like, and then he plays like Warren G Regulate, like a remix I've never heard before. That's a fucking awesome remix. It's like yeah. I was so happy, man. So happy.
You know, there's one other there's a YouTuber actually I've been listening to quite a lot. His name's called Patrick CC. He does these videos that show signed versus unsigned rappers, and he basically decides who wins. There's some amazing unsigned people, like literally unsigned all day long. Every single track. Like there's some, well, maybe not every single track, but a lot of them. Some really, really cool upcoming work on there. So I just, photos into YouTube playlist. Yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome. I'm going to check that out. Right. Okay, Cal, thank you very much. It's been absolutely awesome. You're a superstar. I'll just poke you in a few weeks. I'm
Keep
just
poking.
I'm joking, man. It comes when it comes, man. Seriously, no pressure. And I really appreciated I'm on that list as well. That's
No,
super cool, man.
No, you've helped us out enough times, and you've given us this opportunity to show off to the community as well. There's very few other places where we could have done something like this. So no, seriously, thank you.
Oh, awesome, man. Well, look, I think everyone here says that you're doing great work. Everyone's looking forward to it. Go check out Zero Guard as well, and go follow Cal right now. He's awesome. So on the Twitters, the hell site known as Twitter. And before you go, there's a link. I'm sure someone's going to drop in. Maybe I can drop it in. There you go. Oh no, I can't. I don't know where it is. Okay, I've got to do this as well. We're up for awards this year as well for hang on, I'll just drop it in. We're up for awards on the European Podcast Award, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you vote.
Shit, really?
Yeah, we went last year. I've got the trophy here from last year, which actually has some weird things inside it. It's obviously been really useful. It has a national lottery ball inside there. I got from a talk we did. It has the challenge coin for the Signals RAF, and it has some other stuff in it as well. I don't know what that is. Oh, lots of dead woodlouse as well. So yeah, nice, nice. But European Cyber Blogger Awards for the best new blog. We didn't have a blog when we won this award. That new didn't exist. Amazing. We want to win again. We want to win the category podcast. .NET Diaries actually won best podcast, to be honest. But do you know what?
Awesome.
Yeah. So please vote because we want to win something that actually is in our right category. But yeah, thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Seriously. And make sure everyone subscribes to us as well, or subs or follows, all that kind of stuff. That's what I've got to start saying that now. So yeah,
everyone should subscribe to the Many Hats Club. Seriously, every single person. There's so many. In fact, I'm just going to plug this as well. The episodes on the podcast list, there's some amazing stuff in there. Ed Tucker, his was freaking awesome. I loved his vibe. And the McAfee one as well.
Oh yeah, I got in so much trouble for that one as well. Amazing. I got so much trouble. Yeah,
best one ever. Honestly, I fucking love that.
Did you see the second part?
No.
There's two parts. There's two parts to it. So there's part one, okay, and then in January we did part two. Like we actually did it again. I'll send you a link to it, mate. So we did a second part. He was even more crazy in that one. Seriously, he just started raging down the I asked him about his court case, right? That the government were trying to do against him, and he was like quite cool about it. And then it just flipped. Just started shouting abuse at like oh this judge, and he just literally just went like really sinister. I was just like, so that just fucking happened. It was mental. I'll send it to you after this, mate. Seriously, I'll drop it on Twitter. It's epic.
Dude, you've just made my evening. That's gonna be my come down video. Fucking awesome.
Mate, seriously, and we're not talking about like having sex with whales or anything like that. It goes a little bit weird, but yeah, there you go. It's genuinely interesting though. The guy is whacked, but he's you can't admire his thought process.
Oh, the guy's a legend in my view. Fucking nuts, but very, very clever at the same time.
Yeah, you can see he's still got all his marbles.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Right, man. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Take care. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.